Yo, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Trash Dog's audio vlog. It's obviously been a while since I've done one of these. We've been doing a lot of work up in this area, but I figure it's time for me to come back and do it. So what we're going to be talking about today is actually two pieces of gear put together because they do not work. Well, one doesn't work by itself. What we're going to be talking about is the Saffire Pro 40 and the Octopre. These are both from Focusrite. I got these interfaces a while ago, and more or less they were the beginning of a project studio. And together, when you pair them, you have 16 individual channels. So you have the Focusrite Saffire Pro 40, which is going to have 8 individual channels. I'll pull over here. You can see we're going to have 2 inputs on the front here, and then the rest will be on the back of the Saffire Pro. Currently this is just a negator rack. It's like a to-go rack. It's no big deal, you know what I'm saying? I'm also going to just take this camera and just boop boop. We marked here by 1 and 2, as well as on the rest of the interface. It's pretty much a simple piece of gear. It definitely has its technological pieces as well, which I will not be talking about too much, other than what you want to look for when you're pairing these two pieces together and what that process looks like. The program is called Saffire Pro Mix, I believe. I have it open on my computer. Saffire Mix Control is the actual name of it. So that is what you use to interface these into your computer. It does have to be running while you are recording. So just as a heads up, if you're having any kind of issues, I'm not going to be here telling you too much about the inner workings of it, but if I can help you troubleshoot along the way, if you do have these products, this is kind of the also intent for that. Because I had a lot of issues with these when I was working with them at first. And it was just simplicity. So down here, we have our monitors. This also has 8 in and 8 out, as well as with the Octopre. The big difference between these two is Octopre is going to have phantom power in banks, and there is, in my opinion, a lot more dynamic range on the Octopre, as well as onboard compression on each channel. However, the Octopre does not work by itself. You have to be running it in parallel with something. So this is plugged in through an ADAT cable in the back. The ADAT cable is basically just going to put together this and this. It's fiber optic, 8 channels, or you can record at 96K with these interfaces if you're really into high fidelity audio or whatever. And from that standpoint, this will only do 4 channels per ADAT cable. This does have 2 ADATs in the back. If you want to pop in here one more time, I think you already got some shots on there, right? Yeah. So I'll just, from there, what we're going to look at on these 2 pieces on the front, and this is going to be the most important part when you're interfacing. Later in the video, when we actually do our tracking, I will show you what is the difference, because we're going to switch the patches. Currently, everything that's set up on our mics is going straight to the Saffire Pro 40 to begin with. So after that, we will go in around. We have Shure microphones up on there. I'll talk about those in just a second. And from here, these are your 2 most important numbers you're going to look at when you're interfacing this. Is it internally clocking? You want this to be the clock. You want to make sure that you have it set to whatever sample rate you're recording at, matching your session. Pro Tools users, this is super important. This is the most important thing. So fucking important. I'm serious. If this isn't interfacing and you're using Pro Tools and you don't have that sample rate correct, you're not going to get anything done. And another heads up, when you're working with Firewire pieces of gear, what you're going to want to make sure you do is set everything up, plug it all in, have it all turned off and powered off. Then you will power on your interface and then power on your computer. There is a big issue of if you disconnect these things, you can fuck this stuff up. This isn't playground USB interface gear. You can mess up the firmware, you can mess up a lot of your interface not good stuff. So always make sure if you're using something like this, you follow that instruction. You want to make sure everything is off, interface turns on, 1, 2, computer turns on, with it plugged into FireWire. Then you will open Saffire Mix Control, and then you will open your session. After that, if you do that order, everything should normal completely fine, and you will not have any issues, and that's all I'm going to talk about when it comes to that. No audio, sounds, anything like that. Everything you will be hearing, of course, is always raw and natural. Beyond that, we're going into Logic Pro X. That is my preferred. I can use Pro Tools, I don't care, whatever, you can use Pro Tools. This works with any DAW. Cubase, Ableton, all of it. On the drums, we have just the most simplistic drum miking setup we could do. We have kick in, kick out. We've got 57s, snare top and snare bottom. Down below, I'm gonna move the mic one more time. On the drums, we have 57s, snare top, snare bottom. We have D40 AKGs on Tom 1 and Tom 2. We have AKG C1000s?
C430.
C430s, I'm making stuff up. As overheads, those do need phantom power. Again, with those interfaces, you can apply phantom power. Also with the Octopre, it comes in banks of 4, so 1 through 4, 5 through 8. Remember, when you do it all together, you will have 16 channels. Currently, we're not going to be utilizing all of that. We're going to be patching them into different pieces so you can hear the difference. But the whole point of this rig is to allow you to have 16 individual recording channels for a pretty decent cost. Bad news. So, I'm an idiot. I've never used these interfaces outside of Pro Tools. I'm not going to waste my time right now to work them together. However, we did get a good demo of the Saffire Pro. So in another video or something like that, if I feel the need to go through and figure out the interfacing of the Octopre a little bit more, I believe, and this is just what I think, and also if you, in the comments, if you know anything about this stuff, please feel free to share your opinion as well. I've only used it in Pro Tools. There's a lot more routing information and a lot more ability to work with the internals of what's coming into your computer. I don't believe that Logic has as much of that, and so I think it's definitely more of a situation like that. However, you did hear this recorded into the Saffire Pro 40, and beyond that, I mean, I like the interface. I think it sounds decent. In my opinion, the kick's kind of whack. I would have appreciated having some, like, showing you some of the compression that comes into the Octopre, but you know, whatever. So I think that from there, you know, hopefully we all learned something, we all grew, and I'll give this 34 pumpernickel pieces of bread out of 40.